The stars had always been there waiting. For thousands of years, humanity looked up at them and wondered. Now, finally, they could reach them. The jump drive hummed as the UESS Magellan dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, watching the unknown star system materialize on the screens. This was their 15th jump into unexplored space. So far, they had found empty systems, dead worlds, and ancient ruins. No living civilizations. Until now. The sensors screamed with activity. Ships, dozens of them. Massive vessels that made Earth's newest spacecraft look like toys. They hung in space around a blue-green world, their hulls covered in symbols and lights that pulsed with unknown meaning. "We're being scanned," Lieutenant Park said from his station. His voice was tight with tension. Sarah took a deep breath. This was it. First contact. The moment humanity had dreamed about for generations. "Open all communication channels. Broadcast our greeting package in every language and format we have." The greeting played out into space. Mathematical sequences. Images of Earth. Music from 100 cultures. The message was simple. "We come in peace. We want to meet you." For 3 long minutes, nothing happened. Then the communication console lit up like a festival. The alien response was immediate and overwhelming. Sarah's translation AI struggled to keep up, but slowly, words formed on her screen. "Primitive vessels. You have entered the territory of the Cathari Dominion. State your origin and purpose." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. The tone was cold, formal, not exactly the warm welcome she had hoped for. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Service. We are explorers from the planet Earth. We seek peaceful contact and cultural exchange." Another pause. When the response came, Sarah felt her stomach drop. "Earth. The database shows your species achieved faster-than-light travel 8 months ago. You are young. You are inexperienced. The Cathari Dominion has maintained order in this region for 6,000 of your years. You will proceed to the coordinates we provide. Your leaders will receive instruction on proper integration into the Dominion structure." Sarah looked at her crew. They all wore the same expression of confusion and growing alarm. "Integration?" she asked carefully. "We're interested in diplomatic relations, but Earth is a sovereign system. We're not looking to join any political structure." The silence that followed was different. Sarah could almost feel the temperature drop. "Captain Chen, you misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. Your system will submit to Dominion authority. This is how order is maintained. Younger species lack the wisdom to govern themselves effectively. The Dominion provides guidance, protection, and purpose. You should be grateful." Sarah's hands tightened on the armrest of her chair. Every instinct she had developed in 20 years of military service was screaming at her. "I'll need to discuss this with Earth Command. We'll respond within. You will respond now. Submit or face corrective measures. These are the only options given to primitive species who do not understand their place." The Magellan's AI translated not just the words but the emotional context. The aliens weren't angry. They weren't even particularly interested. They were bored. Routine. This was something they had done 1,000 times before. Sarah made her decision. Magellan to Earth Command. Priority Alpha communication, uploading full contact log and sensor data. Request immediate council session. She turned back to the communication screen. "The human race will need time to consider your offer. We will send a diplomatic team to discuss terms." "There are no terms. There is only compliance or correction. You have 30 of your days." The alien ships didn't move to intercept as the Magellan jumped back to Earth. Sarah spent the entire journey reviewing the sensor logs. The Cathari Dominion was massive. 7 member species. Hundreds of worlds. A military fleet that numbered in the thousands. And they treated first contact like filing paperwork. The United Earth Council met in emergency session. The chamber was packed with representatives from every nation and orbital habitat. Sarah stood before them, playing the recording of the contact. When it finished, the chamber erupted. "They threatened us. We can't possibly fight them. We should negotiate. Find common ground. Ambassador Marcus Williams, Earth's senior diplomat, raised his hand for silence. He was an older man, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many wars. I've spent my entire career studying conflict and negotiation. I've reviewed every byte of data we have on the Cathari. Captain Chen, show slide 17. The massive screen displayed what their AI had pieced together from the alien databases they had briefly accessed. A timeline of Cathari expansion. Species after species, all following the same pattern. Contact, ultimatum, integration, and then, over generations, erasure, languages gone, cultures absorbed, identities disappeared. They don't conquer, Marcus said quietly. They digest. Every species they've encountered either submitted and slowly ceased to exist, or refused and was destroyed. The Cathari don't see it as evil. They see it as gardening, pruning the galaxy into their preferred shape. The council chamber fell silent. "What do you recommend?" asked Secretary General Okonkwo. Marcus looked at the faces around him. Leaders from China, India, Brazil, Nigeria, Europe, North America, and 100 orbital communities. Humanity had spent centuries fighting itself, killing each other over resources and ideology and pure stubbornness. They had nearly destroyed themselves a dozen times, but they had survived, and they had learned. "We refuse," Marcus said. "We reject their authority. We tell them that Earth bows to no one." "They'll attack," someone said. "We can't win." "Maybe," Marcus agreed, "but if we submit, we die anyway. Just slower. At least if we fight, we die as humans." The vote took 6 hours. The debate was fierce. Some argued for submission, for buying time, for finding a diplomatic solution. Others argued for war, for pride, for freedom. In the end, the vote was closer than anyone wanted to admit. But it passed. Earth would refuse. The message was sent on a tight beam transmission directly to the Cathari Dominion Council. It was formal, polite, firm. "The United Earth Council appreciates your contact and your offer. However, humanity declines to join the Cathari Dominion. We are willing to establish diplomatic relations, trade agreements, and cultural exchange as equal partners. We are not willing to submit to external authority. We hope you will respect our decision and our sovereignty." The response came within hours. "Your refusal is noted. Your arrogance is typical of primitive species who do not understand the forces that shape the galaxy. A peacekeeping fleet will arrive at your outer colonies within 40 days. You will witness the price of defiance. When you are ready to reconsider, we will accept your surrender. The Dominion is patient. The Dominion is eternal. The Dominion is inevitable." Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense station, watching the sensor feeds from the outer colonies. 40 days. They had 40 days to prepare for an enemy they couldn't possibly defeat. Behind her, engineers and soldiers worked frantically. Humanity had always been good at one thing: killing each other. Now they would find out if those terrible skills could save them. "Get me the defense coordinators," Sarah said. "All of them. Every nation, every habitat, every military command. If the Cathari want war, they're about to learn something important about humans." "What's that, Captain?" Lieutenant Park asked. Sarah's expression was grim. "That we've been preparing for this fight our entire history. We just didn't know who the enemy would be." Fleet Commander Zenthar of the Cathari stood on the bridge of the Eternal Judgment, watching the primitive human colonies grow larger on the display. 30 capital ships followed in perfect formation behind his flagship. It was by any measure massive overkill, but the Dominion believed in clear lessons. "Status of the target colonies?" Zenthar asked. 5 settlements detected, Commander. Mining operations, research stations, and agricultural habitats. Total population approximately 40,000 humans. No significant military presence detected. Zenthar's facial tendrils rippled with satisfaction. This would be swift. Humans would see their outer colonies occupied, realize the futility of resistance and surrender. Then the long process of integration would begin. In 3 generations, there would be no more humans. Just new citizens of the Dominion who happened to have human-shaped bodies. Open communication to all colonies. Standard terms. The message broadcast on every channel. Attention human settlements. This is Fleet Commander Zenthar of the Cathari Dominion. Your homeworld has refused lawful authority. You are hereby ordered to evacuate to designated transport ships. Compliance will ensure your safety. Resistance will be corrected. Zenthar expected panic, chaos, desperate pleas for mercy. Instead, he got silence. Then, slowly, one by one, each colony responded with the same message. The words were simple, spoken by different voices but always the same. No. Zenthar's tendrils stiffened in confusion. They refuse evacuation? Explain this behavior. His cultural advisor, a smaller Cathari who had studied dozens of integrated species, looked troubled. Commander, this is unusual. Most species prioritize survival of their civilians. They evacuate. They surrender. They accept occupation to protect their young, then make them understand the consequences. The fleet moved into position around the first colony, a mining station built into a large asteroid. Zenthar ordered a demonstration. A single plasma bolt, carefully calibrated to destroy one of the colony's outer structures. A warehouse empty, no casualties. The message was clear. We can destroy you, but we're offering mercy. The colony's response was not what Zenthar expected. The entire asteroid lit up with weapons fire. Makeshift railguns, converted mining lasers, and explosive charges that had been planted throughout the structure. 3 Cathari ships took damage. 1 lost shields completely. They're fighting? Zenthar's voice rose in disbelief. Civilians are fighting? The battle lasted 18 hours. The mining colony had turned itself into a fortress. Every tunnel was trapped. Every chamber was defended. The humans used the asteroid's own structure against them, collapsing tunnels and venting atmosphere to slow the Cathari boarding teams. When the colony finally fell, Zenthar stood among the wreckage. 300 humans dead, 67 Cathari soldiers dead. For one mining station. They couldn't win, Zenthar said to his cultural advisor. They knew they couldn't win. Why did they fight? The advisor had no answer. The pattern repeated at the second colony. And the third, humans fought with mining equipment, homemade explosives, and bare hands. They broadcast their battles, sending encrypted footage back to Earth. Each message ended with the same words. We do not surrender. At the fourth colony, a research station orbiting a gas giant, the humans did something that shocked Zenthar to his core. Rather than surrender, they activated the station's reactor overload and aimed it at the Cathari ships. The explosion destroyed the entire station and damaged 5 Cathari vessels. They killed themselves? Zenthar could barely process it. They chose death over occupation? His fleet intelligence officer pulled up historical data from Earth's databases. They had taken weeks to translate and analyze human culture. What they found was disturbing. Commander, these humans have a long history of this behavior. They call it resistance. There are thousands of examples in their records. Populations fighting against occupation, even when victory was impossible. They have stories, songs, and monuments dedicated to those who died fighting rather than submit. Zenthar studied the reports. The Siege of Leningrad, the Warsaw Uprising, the Battle of Thermopylae, countless other names he couldn't pronounce. Humans had been fighting hopeless battles against superior forces for their entire history, and they were proud of it. The 5th colony was the worst, an agricultural habitat with 15,000 civilians. Zenthar offered generous terms. Surrender and they would be relocated peacefully. No one would be harmed. The colony administrator, a woman with gray hair and hard eyes, responded personally. Commander Zenthar, I've read about your dominion. I know what happens to species that surrender. You absorb us. You erase us. Our children will speak your language, worship your gods, follow your laws. In 3 generations, humanity will be a footnote in your databases. That is the price of peace, Zenthar replied. Order requires sacrifice. Then we choose chaos, the woman said, and cut the transmission. The agricultural colony didn't fight with weapons. They fought with time. Every system was sabotaged. Every airlock was trapped. Every computer was wiped. The Cathari had to secure each section slowly, carefully, because the humans had turned their home into a death trap. It took 2 months to fully occupy the colony. Zenthar lost another 8 ships not to military action, but to accidents, traps, and what the humans called guerrilla warfare. When it was over, Zenthar stood in the colony's command center. On the wall was a mural painted in bright colors. It showed humans of all types, standing together with words in various Earth languages. His translator struggled but eventually produced, "We will remember. We will resist. We will not fade." "This makes no sense," Zenthar said to the empty room. "They cannot win. Why do they fight?" His cultural advisor approached cautiously. "Commander, I believe I understand. Most species we've encountered reached space through cooperation. They unified their planets through philosophy, religion, or collective consciousness. They see war as aberration. And humans reached space through competition. They had multiple nations, multiple ideologies, multiple wars. They nearly destroyed their planet several times. They don't see war as aberration, Commander. They see it as normal, as inevitable." Zenthar felt something he hadn't experienced in decades of military service, a cold sensation that humans might call fear. "How many wars have they fought?" The advisor pulled up the data. Recorded conflicts number in the thousands. Major wars in the hundreds. They have detailed military academies, strategic doctrines, tactical manuals. Commander, they've been studying how to fight for their entire existence. But they're young, primitive. Primitive technology, perhaps. But their understanding of war? The advisor's tendrils trembled. "Commander, we have 6,000 years of military tradition. Most of it is ceremonial. We fight to establish dominance, not to exterminate. We haven't fought a real war in 3,000 years. And humans? They've never stopped fighting. Every human alive comes from a culture that survived countless wars. They know how to resist occupation because they've done it hundreds of times. They know how to fight without hope because hope is a luxury they've rarely had." Zenthar looked at the casualty reports. 5 colonies occupied, 12 ships lost, hundreds of soldiers dead, thousands of humans dead, and from Earth not a single word of surrender, just silence. Then, on every communication channel across every known frequency, a message appeared. It was brief, formal, and absolutely terrifying in its simplicity. "To the Cathari Dominion, you have attacked our citizens. You have destroyed our homes. You have given us no choice. We tried peace. You chose war, very well. Since you chose war, let us show you how it's done. United Earth Command." Zenthar read the message 3 times. "What does this mean?" "We've already defeated their outer colonies. What more can they do?" His intelligence officer looked pale. "Commander, I've been analyzing human military history. There's a pattern. When humans fight defensive wars, when they're attacked first, they don't fight to win. They fight to destroy. Completely, utterly. They have a phrase for it." "What phrase?" "Total war. It means no mercy, no rules, no limits, just survival or extinction." Zenthar remembered the woman from the agricultural colony. Her hard eyes. Her certainty. He looked at the 5 occupied colonies, each one a graveyard of Cathari soldiers and human civilians. And he wondered, for the first time in his military career, if the Dominion had made a terrible mistake. Admiral Rebecca Torres sat in the war room deep beneath Geneva, surrounded by screens showing every corner of known space. Around her sat the military commanders from every major nation on Earth. Chinese, Russian, American, Indian, Brazilian, European, African. For the first time in human history, they weren't arguing with each other. They were planning war together. "The Cathari expect us to defend Earth," Rebecca said, pointing to the holographic display. "They expect fleets, orbital platforms, desperate last stands. That's how they think war works. Honorable, predictable." "So we do the opposite," said General Zhang Wei from the Chinese Space Force. His smile was cold. "We learned from the best teachers." "Ourselves," Rebecca agreed. "For 10,000 years, humans have been perfecting the art of war. Not ceremonial combat, real war, ugly war. The kind of war the Cathari have never experienced." She pulled up a map of Dominion space. It was vast. Hundreds of systems, countless stations, trade routes that spanned light years. The Cathari have infrastructure, supply lines, economic systems. They're an empire. Empires have weaknesses. Colonel Okoye from Nigeria leaned forward. "You're not planning to attack their military." "Correct. Their military is larger than ours, stronger, more advanced. Fighting them head-on would be suicide." Rebecca's eyes glinted. "So we don't fight their military. We fight their economy, their logistics, their morale. We make it impossible for them to sustain a war." She pulled up a file marked Operation Phantom Doctrine. The name came from an old Chinese military text called The Art of War, combined with American strategic bombing theory, Russian asymmetric warfare tactics, and African guerrilla resistance methods. It was, in essence, every dirty trick humanity had ever learned. Phase 1, Intelligence and Stealth. Our ships are smaller than theirs, but we've developed stealth systems they don't have. We spent 50 years trying to hide nuclear submarines from each other. We know how to be invisible. On the screen, human ships appeared, not the large obvious vessels the Cathari had seen. These were small, dark, coated in materials that absorbed sensor scans. Each one carried sophisticated AI and a crew trained in special operations. These ships will infiltrate Dominion space. They won't attack anything. They'll watch, listen, map every station, every supply route, every communication relay. The Cathari have been at peace for so long they've forgotten to guard their infrastructure. General Petrov from Russia nodded approvingly. And when we have the intelligence? Phase 2, Systematic Dismantling. We don't destroy their worlds. We destroy everything that connects their worlds. Communication satellites, supply depots, automated mining stations, trade hubs. We make it impossible for them to coordinate, impossible for them to resupply, impossible for them to maintain their empire. They'll protect those assets once they realize the pattern, Admiral Kim from Korea observed. Of course, which is why Phase 3 is chaos. We make them paranoid. False flag operations, attacks that look like internal rebellions. We've been overthrowing governments and funding insurgencies for centuries. We know exactly how to make an empire tear itself apart from within. The room fell silent. What Rebecca was describing wasn't honorable warfare. It was systematic destruction. It was everything humanity had learned from centuries of guerrilla resistance, colonial warfare, and ideological conflict. It was total war. The Cathari think war is soldiers fighting soldiers, Rebecca said quietly. They're about to learn that human war involves everyone. Every system, every citizen, everything. Commander Hassan from Egypt raised a concern. The other Dominion species. The member races. They're not our enemies. They're subjects, same as the Cathari wanted us to be. Exactly, Rebecca agreed. Which is why Phase 4 is liberation. We contact the member species secretly. We show them that the Dominion can be beaten. We offer them something the Cathari never did. Independence. If even 2 or 3 species break away, the Dominion collapses. And if they refuse, Rebecca's expression hardened. Then they're complicit in our genocide and we treat them accordingly. The operation launched within a week. 300 stealth ships slipped into Dominion space. They were crewed by volunteers, people who understood they might never come home. Each ship carried enough supplies for 2 years of independent operation. The Cathari never saw them coming. The first attacks were small. A communication relay went dark. A supply convoy disappeared. An automated refinery stopped responding. The Dominion's bureaucracy was so vast that each incident was treated as a local malfunction. Nobody connected the pattern. Then the attacks escalated. A major trade hub serving 17 systems exploded. The Cathari investigation found evidence of sabotage but couldn't determine how anyone had penetrated their security. 3 days later, a fleet supply depot was destroyed. Then another communication network went offline. The Dominion Council convened an emergency session. They had reports of dozens of incidents across their territory. Ships disappearing, stations going dark, economic disruption spreading like disease. Are the humans doing this? Council leader Athrax demanded. Impossible, their military advisor insisted. We're tracking all human vessels. Their fleet remains in their home system. There are no human ships in Dominion space. Then who? Nobody had an answer. The attacks continued. Human special forces teams, dressed in stolen Dominion uniforms, sabotaged key installations and left evidence pointing to internal rebellion. Messages appeared on planetary networks, supposedly from oppressed member species demanding freedom. The Dominion couldn't tell what was real and what was human deception. Meanwhile, Earth's military unveiled weapons the Cathari had never imagined. Relativistic kinetic missiles, simple metal rods accelerated to near light speed. They cost almost nothing to produce and were nearly impossible to defend against. When they hit, they released energy equivalent to nuclear weapons, kamikaze drones, autonomous AI systems that could hunt for weeks, looking for high-value targets. Each one cost less than a single torpedo, but they killed capital ships. Information warfare. Human hackers, trained in decades of cyber conflict, penetrated Dominion networks and spread chaos. False orders, corrupted databases, propaganda that turned member species against their Cathari overlords. Within 6 months, the Dominion's economy was in freefall. Trade routes were considered too dangerous. Supply chains collapsed. 3 member species secretly contacted Earth, asking about the possibility of independence. Fleet Commander Zenthar, still stationed in human space, watched his supply situation deteriorate. His ships needed maintenance, fuel, and ammunition. All of it was delayed or missing. His request to Dominion Command went unanswered for days. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission," his communication officer reported. "It's on an old Cathari military frequency, one we haven't used in 2,000 years. Play it." The message was in perfect Cathari. The accent was flawless, but the speaker was human, a smiling woman in Earth military uniform. "Hello, Commander Zenthar. I'm Colonel Sarah Martinez, Earth Psychological Operations Division. I wanted you to know that the attacks on your infrastructure, that's us. The supply problems you're experiencing, us. The rebellion stirring among your member species, also us. You attacked our homes. Now we're attacking yours. The difference is we're very good at this." Zenthar's tendrils coiled in rage. "This is not honorable combat." "No, it's not," Sarah agreed cheerfully. "It's war, real war. The kind where you use every advantage, every trick, every bit of pain your enemy has to endure. You wanted to teach us a lesson about the Dominion's power. Instead, we're teaching you what humans learned thousands of years ago. There's no honor in war. There's only winning and losing. We will adapt. We will defend our infrastructure." "Of course you will. You'll spread your fleets thin trying to guard everything. Your economy will collapse trying to protect supply lines. Your member species will question why they're suffering for Cathari pride. And eventually you'll face a choice. Keep fighting and watch your Dominion crumble, or make peace with the species you tried to enslave." Sarah leaned closer to the camera. "Commander, humanity has fought thousands of wars. We've been the underdog more times than you can imagine. We've lost battles, lost territory, lost entire civilizations. But we learned something important. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Your Dominion is big, really big, which means it's going to fall really, really hard." The transmission ended. Zenthar sat in silence, reviewing reports. 93 installations destroyed, 47 supply lines disrupted, economic losses in the trillions. And the humans hadn't even attacked the Dominion homeworlds yet. His cultural advisor entered quietly. "Commander, I've completed my analysis of human military doctrine. I thought you should see this." He displayed a quote from a human general named Sherman from a war fought hundreds of years ago. "War is cruelty. There is no use trying to reform it. The crueler it is, the sooner it will be over." "What does this mean?" Zenthar asked. "It means, Commander, that humans don't fight wars to prove they're strong. They fight wars to end them, by any means necessary. They're not trying to defeat us honorably. They're trying to make the cost of victory so high that we'll choose surrender instead." Zenthar looked at the strategic map. The Dominion was vast, but cracks were showing. Member species were wavering. The Cathari Dominion Council Chamber had stood for 4,000 years. Its walls were carved with the names of conquered species, integrated peoples, and glorious victories. Today, those walls seemed to press inward, suffocating. Council leader Athrax addressed the assembled representatives from all 7 member species. His voice was strained. 9 months. 9 months of human resistance have cost us more than the last 3 centuries of expansion. Our economy is in crisis. 3 member species are openly discussing independence, and our military cannot locate the enemy. Then we end this, declared War Matriarch Kasara, leader of the Cathari military. She was old, decorated with honors from dozens of ceremonial conflicts. "We assemble the Grand Fleet, every ship, every soldier. We take it to the human homeworld and we crush them. No more small battles. No more infrastructure games. We go to Earth and we show them what true power means." "That will leave our territory undefended," someone objected. "Defended against what? The humans are the only threat and they'll all be dead. We gather 3,000 ships. We overwhelm them with force so absolute that surrender becomes their only option. This is how the Dominion has always won." The vote was unanimous. Desperation had made them bold. Within weeks, the largest military fleet in galactic history assembled. 3,000 capital ships, each one massive and powerful. Support vessels, troop carriers, siege platforms. It was a fleet designed to conquer entire star systems, and it was aimed at Earth. Admiral Rebecca Torres watched the sensor data with a mixture of fear and grim satisfaction. They're bringing everything, just like we hoped they would. Hoped? General Zhang looked at her incredulously. There are 3,000 ships out there. Exactly. 3,000 ships that aren't protecting their territory. 3,000 ships that need supply lines. 3,000 ships that are going to fly right into the most heavily defended system in human history. Rebecca pulled up the strategic map of Earth's solar system. For 50 years, we prepared for nuclear war. We built bunkers, early warning systems, mutual assured destruction scenarios. We nearly killed ourselves a dozen times planning for this exact situation. Except the enemy was supposed to be other humans, Zhang observed. Details, Rebecca said. The principle is the same. When facing an overwhelming enemy, you don't meet them in open battle. You make every inch of ground cost them. You make them bleed for every small victory. You turn your home into a graveyard. She zoomed in on the solar system. Every asteroid in the belt had been hollowed out and converted into a weapons platform or a mine. Every moon held hidden installations. Space was seeded with millions of small objects that looked like debris, but were actually sensors, weapons, or decoys. The Cathari think in terms of ship-to-ship combat. They're going to fly their fleet toward Earth expecting a battle. Instead, they're flying into a meat grinder. The Grand Fleet entered human space 3 weeks later. War Matriarch Kasara stood on the bridge of the Eternal Victory, watching the yellow star of Sol grow brighter. Around her flagship, thousands of ships maintained perfect formation. Sensor report, she commanded. Multiple contacts, Matriarch. Defensive platforms, automated weapons, minefields. But nothing that can stop this fleet. The humans have fortified their system, but we have overwhelming numbers. And their fleet? Scattered throughout the system. Small groups. They're not massing for a defensive battle. Kessera's tendrils rippled with satisfaction. The humans were afraid. They knew they couldn't win a direct battle, so they were trying to delay the inevitable with scattered resistance. All ships, advance. Destroy any resistance. Our target is Earth. The first attacks came from the asteroid belt. What looked like simple mining stations suddenly lit up with weapons fire. Railguns, missiles, energy weapons, all targeting the Dominion fleet from unexpected angles. Kasara barely noticed. Her fleet's shields absorbed the damage easily. They destroyed the platforms and continued forward. Then the first ships started disappearing. Matriarch, we've lost contact with 17 vessels in the rear formation. Lost contact? They're just gone. No distress signal. No explosion. They vanished from sensors. Kessera pulled up the tactical display. 17 ships spread across the formation simply ceased to exist. What weapon does this? Her science officer looked terrified. Based on the energy signatures, I believe they're using antimatter weapons. Very small amounts precisely targeted. The ships are being annihilated at the molecular level. Antimatter? That's a theoretical technology. The humans must have accelerated development during the war. Matriarch, these weapons are incredibly unstable. The fact that they're using them means they're desperate enough to use weapons that could destroy their own system. Kasara finished. She felt something unfamiliar. Fear. Continue advance. We have 3,000 ships. They can't destroy us all. But the attacks continued. Human ships appeared from dark space, fired salvos of relativistic missiles, and disappeared before the Dominion fleet could respond. The missiles themselves were just metal rods, but at near light speed they hit like nuclear weapons. Every hour, more Dominion ships went silent. Not just destroyed, erased. The antimatter weapons left no wreckage, no survivors, no evidence. And the human psychological warfare was constant. Every communication channel broadcast the same message over and over. You came to destroy our home. We will make you pay for every meter you advance. Turn back. Turn back while you still can. We've lost 300 ships, the tactical officer reported after 2 days of advance. 90% of losses are from weapons we can't detect until they hit. The fleet's morale is deteriorating. Kasara looked at the map. They were still days from Earth. The human homeworld hung in space like a blue jewel, but the path to it was a killing field. How did they do this? She whispered. How did a primitive species create such defenses? A voice came over her personal channel. It was a human voice, calm and cold. War Matriarch Kasara, this is Admiral Rebecca Torres of Earth Defense Command. I'm sending this message because I want you to understand what you're flying into. Human tricks won't stop us. This isn't a trick. It's history. Let me tell you about the Cold War. Rebecca's voice took on a lecture tone. From 1947 to 1991, humanity was divided into two superpowers. We pointed thousands of nuclear weapons at each other. Enough firepower to destroy our entire planet dozens of times over. We called it mutually assured destruction. The idea was simple. If you attack us, we'll destroy you even if we die doing it. Your point? My point is that we spent 50 years planning for total annihilation. We built bunkers that could survive nuclear strikes. We created weapons that could destroy civilization. We developed strategies for fighting after the bombs fell. We practiced ending the world, matriarch. Not once, not twice. For 50 years, we practiced genocide against ourselves. Rebecca paused. You're not fighting a military. You're fighting a species that has contingency plans for its own extinction. Everything you see here, the mines, the hidden weapons, the antimatter, these are things we built to kill ourselves. We just redirected them at you. You're bluffing, am I? Rebecca asked. You've lost 300 ships. You haven't even reached Earth's orbital space yet. We have enough weapons to kill your fleet 3 times over. But here's the thing that should really scare you. We don't care if we die doing it. Every human in this system volunteered to stay. We evacuated no one. The civilians on Earth, they're armed. The stations around Mars, weapons platforms with families living inside them. We don't separate military and civilian, matriarch. When humans fight for survival, everyone fights. Kessera checked her fleet status. 400 ships lost now. The advance was slowing as ships moved cautiously, expecting attacks from any direction. You cannot win, Rebecca continued. Even if you destroy Earth, we have colonies. Hidden bases, ships scattered across 100 systems. We'll hunt your dominion for generations. We'll turn your entire civilization into a war zone. Is that what you want? Is human extinction worth the Dominion's destruction? You're trying to make me afraid. No, matriarch. I'm trying to make you understand. You came here thinking this would be a military operation, a simple conquest. But you made a mistake. You attacked a species that has spent its entire existence preparing for war. Not ceremonial war, not honorable war, real war. The kind where both sides lose and it doesn't matter because the alternative is surrender. Kessera watched another 3 ships vanish from her sensors. Gone. Erased. The fleet was still advancing, but it was dying. Slowly. Expensively. We're through the outer defenses, her tactical officer reported. Mars orbit ahead. Earth beyond that. How many ships remain? 2,400. 600 ships lost. A quarter of the Grand Fleet. And they hadn't even engaged the main human defense forces yet. Kessera pulled up historical data from Earth. She found files about human wars. World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Afghanistan. Dozens of conflicts where humans fought against superior forces using guerrilla tactics. Traps and absolute refusal to surrender. She found one quote that made her tendrils freeze. A human general named Patton. No bastard ever won a war by dying for his country. He won it by making the other poor dumb bastard die for his country. The Cathari Dominion Council chamber was silent. For the first time in 6,000 years, there were empty seats. 3 member species had declared independence during the war. 2 more were considering it. The great empire that had ruled the galaxy was crumbling. Council leader Athrax looked older. His tendrils hung limply. The war matriarch's fleet has returned. Of 3,000 ships, fewer than 1,400 survived. The Grand Fleet, our pride, our power, defeated by primitives. They weren't primitives, said cultural advisor Mekron quietly. That was our mistake. We judged them by age, not capability. We saw young species and assumed ignorance. We didn't realize they were young because they nearly destroyed themselves repeatedly and survived anyway. So what now? Demanded Representative Thal from one of the member species. Do we rebuild? Launch another attack? With what? Athrax gestured at the displays showing their economy. The humans destroyed 30% of our infrastructure. Our trade networks are shattered. 3 species have left the Dominion. We don't have the resources for another war. We can barely maintain order in our remaining territory. Then we've lost. Yes, Athrax said simply. We've lost. The admission hung in the air like poison. The humans are requesting a meeting, Mekron reported. They want to negotiate peace terms. Terms? Thal's voice rose with anger. They defeated us. They'll demand our surrender, our subjugation. We'll become what we tried to make them. Actually, Mecron pulled up the human message. They're not demanding subjugation. Read this. The message appeared on screens throughout the chamber. It was written in perfect Cathari and signed by Ambassador Marcus Williams of Earth. To the Cathari Dominion Council. The war between our peoples has cost both sides dearly. Earth grieves for the civilians lost on both sides. We did not want this war. We fought only to preserve our freedom. Now that hostilities have ended, we propose not vengeance but peace. We invite you to a summit to discuss a new framework for galactic cooperation. One based on mutual respect and sovereignty rather than dominance and submission. The council sat in stunned silence. They're not demanding reparations? Someone asked. They're not occupying our worlds? What do they want? Athrax reread the message carefully. They want to talk, as equals. 3 months later, representatives from 43 species gathered on a neutral station built specifically for the summit. It hung in space between Cathari and human territory, a symbol of the new order being born. Ambassador Marcus Williams walked through the station's central hall, nodding to delegates from species he'd only read about, Cathari, Breventi, Kalish, and dozens of others. Some looked at him with fear, others with curiosity, a few with respect. The summit chamber was designed without hierarchy. No elevated seats, no thrones, just a large circular table where every species sat as equals. It was a radical concept for a galaxy that had known only dominion and submission for millennia. Marcus took his seat. Beside him sat Admiral Rebecca Torres, still in uniform. Across from them sat Council Leader Athrax and War Matriarch Kisara. The Cathari looked diminished but not broken. "Thank you for coming," Marcus began. "I know this is difficult for everyone. A year ago we were trying to kill each other. Today we're trying to build something new. You defeated us," Athrax said bluntly. "Why not demand our surrender? Why not occupy our worlds? That is what we would have done." "Because that's not how you build lasting peace," Marcus replied. "Humankind learned this the hard way. We have countless examples of victors demanding humiliation from the defeated. It never ends well. Resentment grows. New wars begin. The cycle continues." He pulled up historical data from Earth. After our first global war, the winners punished the losers so harshly that it created the conditions for an even worse war 20 years later. We killed 100 million people learning that vengeance doesn't create peace. "Then what does?" asked a representative from the Breventi, one of the former Dominion member species. "Mutual security," Rebecca said. "On Earth we had an alliance called NATO. Multiple nations, each sovereign, each independent. But they agreed that an attack on one was an attack on all. It prevented wars because aggressors knew they'd face united opposition." "You're proposing this for the galaxy?" Kessera asked skeptically. "Yes," Marcus said. "A galactic defense pact. Each species maintains complete sovereignty. You govern yourselves. No one can tell you how to run your worlds. But in exchange, we agree to collective defense. If an aggressive force attacks any member, all members respond. And if we refuse to join this pact, then you don't join. There's no coercion, no punishment. You remain independent, but you also don't get the benefits of mutual defense." Marcus leaned forward. "Humanity didn't fight this war to build an empire. We fought to preserve our freedom. We want the same for everyone else." "I don't believe you," Thal said flatly. "No species with your military power would simply offer partnership. You could conquer us, force us to submit. Why don't you?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with old pain. "Because we know what war costs. Every human leader in this room has studied military history. We know what happens when you use fear and force to maintain order. It works for a while, sometimes for generations, but eventually it fails. The oppressed rebel. The empire falls, and everyone loses." He pulled up images from human history. Burned cities, mass graves, nuclear wastelands. This is what we do to each other when we fight without restraint. We've bombed our own cities. We've developed weapons that can sterilize planets. We've practiced genocide, not because we're evil, but because war without limits destroys everything. The chamber was silent. The images spoke for themselves. "You showed us your military power," Marcus continued. "Now I'm showing you why we fear that power ourselves. Humanity doesn't want to be the strongest species in the galaxy. We want to be part of a galaxy where strength isn't necessary. where disputes are resolved through discussion, not destruction. That's idealistic, Athrax said, but his tone was thoughtful, not dismissive. Maybe. But idealism backed by capability is called deterrence. We can destroy anyone who attacks us or our allies, but we'd rather never have to prove it again. Over the next weeks, the summit debated the framework. Some species were skeptical. Others were eager. The Cathari were reluctant but pragmatic. They knew their dominion was finished and they needed a new system to prevent total collapse. The final agreement was called the Galactic Cooperation Accord. It had three main principles. First, sovereignty. Each species governed itself without interference. Second, mutual defense. An attack on one member was treated as an attack on all. Third, open cooperation. Technology, culture, and ideas would be shared freely among members. 40 species signed the accord on the first day. Within a year, that number grew to 70. The Cathari didn't sign immediately. They needed time to adapt to a galaxy where they weren't the dominant power. But eventually, even they joined, recognizing that the alternative was isolation and irrelevance. 5 years after the war ended, Ambassador Marcus Williams gave a speech to the Galactic Assembly, now meeting regularly on the neutral station that had grown into a thriving diplomatic hub. 5 years ago, the Cathari Dominion tried to subjugate humanity. They failed. Not because we were stronger, we weren't. Not because we were more advanced, we weren't that either. They failed because they fundamentally misunderstood what they were facing. Marcus looked around at the assembled species. The Cathari thought they were dealing with a young species. They were right, but they thought young meant weak. They didn't realize that humanity is young because we've nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times. Every human alive is descended from survivors of wars, plagues, disasters, and near extinctions. We didn't climb peacefully to the stars. We clawed our way up through conflict and catastrophe. When you attacked us, you didn't just face our military. You faced 10,000 years of accumulated knowledge about warfare, survival, and resistance. Every nation on Earth contributed something. Chinese strategic philosophy, Russian winter warfare tactics, American industrial capacity, African guerrilla resistance methods, European logistical planning. You face not a military but a collective memory of every war humanity ever fought. He paused. But here's the important part. We don't want to be remembered for our military victory. We want to be remembered for what we did after we won. We didn't enslave you. We didn't demand tribute. We offered partnership. Why? Asked a young Cathari in the audience, one of the new generation born after the war. Because, Marcus said, we've learned that winning a war isn't the same as winning peace. You can destroy your enemy and still lose if all you create is more enemies. Real victory isn't defeating your opponent. It's making your opponent your ally. He gestured to the assembly. Look around this chamber. 5 years ago, some of you were trying to kill each other. Today, you're working together. Cathari ships patrol alongside human vessels. Former Dominion species trade freely with Earth. We share technology, culture, and ideas. This is what victory looks like. Not monuments to conquest, but cooperation among equals. A Cathari elder stood. It was Athrax, now retired from the council, but still influential. Ambassador Williams, I have a question.